Here's what matters. Most people don't actually need the best saw. They need the saw that keeps momentum going. They need something that makes accurate cuts without adding friction to the day. So instead of treating corded and cordless like rival ideologies, let's treat them like two different answers to the same problem. How do you want to work? Power consistency. If you've ever pushed a saw through thick stock and felt the blade hesitate, you already understand why people love corded miter saws. A corded motor doesn't have to negotiate with a battery pack about how much current it can pull in that moment. It just takes what it needs, as long as the circuit can supply it. That tends to translate into a steadier feel, especially when you're doing repeated cuts in denser material, running a larger blade, or working fast and not babying the feed rate. Cordless miter saws can be impressively strong, and some of them are more than good enough, even for serious trim and framing work. But their power delivery is tied to the battery system. Battery size, chemistry, temperature, the health of the pack, and the electronics controlling output. Let me explain what that means in plain terms. Early in the charge, the saw may feel eager and quick. Later, it may still cut fine, but it can feel a little less snappy. Not always, not on every platform, but it's a variable you live with. If you like predictability above all, corded usually wins this round. Runtime, uptime. Corded miter saws have a simple superpower. They don't get tired. If you're batch cutting for hours, or you're in the middle of a run of baseboard and you hit your rhythm, the last thing you want is a forced break because the battery is blinking at you. With a cord, the runtime conversation basically disappears. You may trip a breaker if you share a circuit with other hungry tools, but that's a different kind of problem, and it's usually solvable. Cordless flips that. You trade unlimited runtime for freedom of placement, and then you manage uptime through planning. That planning can be easy if you already live in a battery ecosystem. If you have multiple packs, a fast charger, and habits that keep things topped up, the saw can feel almost as available as a corded one. If you don't, it's a constant little tax on your attention. The saw becomes a tool plus a schedule. Charge this, rotate that, keep a spare warm in winter, don't forget the charger at the last site. Bottom line, cordless uptime is either effortless or annoying, depending on how disciplined and well-equipped you are. Portability. This is where cordless miter saws earn their fans. The ability to pick up the saw, set it down, and start cutting without hunting for power is not a small perk. It changes where you're willing to do the work. You stop making do with awkward setups, and you start putting the saw where it should be, near the material, near the work, near the actual problem you're solving. Corded saws can be portable too, but they're portable with conditions. You need an outlet. You need a cord long enough to reach it. You need to route that cord so it doesn't get cut, tripped on, yanked loose, or wrapped around your stand. In a shop, none of this is dramatic. On a job site, it can be. Portability isn't just weight, it's how many small obstacles you have to clear before you get to the first accurate cut. Setup convenience. Setup is the quiet factor that decides which saw gets used. Corded saws often require the cord ritual. Unwrap extension cord, plug it in, make sure it won't snag, and then keep it from becoming a tripping hazard. It's not hard, it's just one more thing. And if you move your saw multiple times in a day, that one more thing repeats until it feels like a chore. Cordless is simpler in a way that's almost unfair. You put in a battery and work. That's it. This matters most when you're doing short sessions, a few cuts here, a few cuts there, punchless life. If your day is a series of small tasks, cordless can feel like it removes friction at every turn. If your day is one long cutting session at a fixed station, the convenience gap shrinks, and corded starts to look more sensible again. Cost, tool, and ownership. Corded saws are usually the straightforward buy. You pay for the saw and maybe a better blade, and you're in business. There's no expensive battery pack aging in a drawer, no charger to replace, and no temptation to keep upgrading packs because another tool joined your collection. The ownership costs are boring, and boring is often good. Cordless can be either a bargain or a money pit, depending on where you start. If you already own the battery platform and you have packs that can handle a hungry tool, adding a bare tool might feel like a smart move. You're just expanding what your existing batteries can do. But if you're starting from zero, the real cost includes at least one serious battery and a charger, and maybe a second pack if you want uninterrupted work. Also, batteries wear out, not overnight, but eventually. So the cordless cost story isn't just the sticker price, it's the total cost of staying powered. There's another cost that people don't put on paper, the cost of annoyance. If a corded saw makes you wrestle cords all day, that's a cost. If a cordless saw makes you babysit batteries when you're trying to focus, that's a cost too. The cheaper option isn't always the one with the lower receipt. Best fit use case. Corded miter saws make the most sense when the saw has a home. Think of a workshop miter station, a garage bench, or a dedicated corner of a site with stable power. In that world, a cord is not a limitation. It's just the way the tool eats. You care about repeatability, consistent feel, and the ability to work as long as you want. If you do cabinet parts, furniture components, or long trim runs where you're making dozens or hundreds of cuts, corded fits the rhythm of the work. Cordless miter saws shine when the work is scattered. If you bounce between rooms, floors, or separate buildings, or you do installations where the saw moves with you, the freedom is real. If you're a finish carpenter cutting in a client's driveway, a remodeler who doesn't trust the home's wiring, or someone who does occasional work in places where power is a hassle, cordless starts to feel like the obvious answer. And if you're working in a space where cords are genuinely dangerous, like a busy site with lots of foot traffic, eliminating cords can be a safety improvement, not just a convenience. Here's a practical way to decide. Ask one question: do you want to bring the material to the saw or bring the saw to the material? In a shop, you bring the material to the saw. On many job sites, you bring the saw to the material. Corded tends to favor the first. Cordless tends to favor the second. Bottom line, if the saw mostly lives in one place and you value consistency and unlimited runtime, corded is the calmer choice. It's predictable, it's ready whenever you are, and it doesn't ask you to manage a power system. You plug it in and your day becomes about cutting, not about staying charged. If your work moves around and you hate the friction of cords, battery power can make you faster in a very human way. It reduces setup time, lets you cut where it's convenient, and keeps the job flowing. The trade is that you become the person in charge of batteries, chargers, and planning. The best choice is the one that matches your habits. If you're organized with batteries and already own the platform, cordless can feel liberating. If you want a tool that asks nothing of you and runs forever, corded is hard to beat. If you tell me where you'll use it most, shop, job site, both. What you cut most often, trim, framing lumber, hardwood, and whether you already own a battery platform, I can tailor this script to your exact situation and keep it equally natural.